What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. As always, I'm AJ Malillo,
And I'm Steve Rambola.
and I hope you guys are having a wonderful week so far and a great start to your weekend. And Steven, same for you. As the days before you go off to law school get less and less, how are you doing over there?
When you put it like that, it makes it really real. And I'm still
That's what I'm
coming to
here for.
terms.
That's what I'm
I
here
know
for,
if
to make things real.
if there's one thing AJ does is he keeps it real. We all know this. It's no, you know what? I'm I'm really settling in to accepting the challenges that are going to be before me, whether they be, all of the challenges inherent in attending law school, but also the challenges that come along with moving to a new place, let alone an entirely different state. I'm realizing I have to learn functionally like new social customs and what do people in Florida do for fun? Am I gonna have to start like wrestling alligators?
Oh, I was
I
just
don't
gonna
know.
say that. I was just gonna say that.
I
I said you're gonna have to learn how to wrestle alligators.
That's what I mean. Am I gonna have to learn how to navigate a swamp in order to be friends with like the cool kids? I don't know. Jokes
Jorts.
aside, yeah, jorts and work boots. That's the new
Jorts and
attire.
work though. Yeah, you gotta get Tim's and jorts.
I'll have to cut my hair into a mullet. You think?
I think you could rock a mullet. Honestly, your dad's been rocking a mullet since what, 1986?
Not earlier. I think. I was thinking about it legitimately, but all seriousness, I actually got my copy of my lease agreement for the place I'm going to be staying today, so that made it like gut punch really real. I should be hearing back within the next like 3 to 5 business days about my loans, which is going to make it really, really, really real. There's going to be a lot of numbers that I'm not going to want to look at for a really long time, but it's the price you pay to chase your dreams, and that's what we're
Literally.
doing. We're chasing our dreams, and that's what I've been leaning into. And in the moments of thought, in the moments of nervousness, in the moments of anxiety, in the moments of apprehension, I'll even say, I just remind myself. I do like a deep breath, and inhale and exhale, and I say, "This is what I've worked for. This is what I want. This is my dream, and this is the first step of a lifelong marathon to cross a finish line that I've been fantasizing about my entire life. And I'm taking that opportunity for everything that it's worth. And I'm going to go down there. And as nervous as I may be inside my head, I am just going to fake it till I make it. I'm going to shake hands. I am going to smile. I am going to stand up in the classroom, be that guy, front row, like give it everything I got because you only get it once. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to make the most of it. And I'm really just kind of gearing myself up to get into that mindset to go down there, be successful, and make a name for myself down there. It hurts to leave a place where you've known everybody for your whole life, but it's exciting because I get to do it all over again in a new place. So that's kind of where I'm at with all this.
Absolutely. I love to hear it. I couldn't agree more. I think that that's exactly the right mantra to have. I could give two pieces of advice. One is something that I heard maybe 300 million and a half times during my first year of law school, and I'm sure you'll hear it a lot too. But if you haven't heard it already, let me be the first to say, remember your why. It's going to be stressful times. You're going to be going through it, and you're like, why did I do this to myself? And in those moments, you have to remember why you did that to yourself, why you chose to be there. Remember your why. Why are you in the position that you're in? Why did you choose to do this? Because ultimately, you are choosing to do this to yourself, even though at points you'll forget that. And then my other piece of advice is something I learned as the guy who. So, okay, let me just put it into perspective really quick, and then it'll make sense. Not that for you it will make sense either way, but for the listeners, right? So there were a couple classes in which we had assigned seating. So everybody gets there super early because they want the good seats or whatever. And in the first row of all of my classes, there was a tech ban for the first semester. So if you sat in the first row, you weren't allowed to use laptops. Second row and on, you were allowed to use laptops. Now, that includes if nobody was sitting in the first row. If nobody was sitting in the first row, you were still allowed to use laptops in the second row. Don't ask, but that was the rule. So I said to myself, you know, everybody's going to be fighting over this second row and third row. I'm just going to sit in the front row. I take hand notes anyway. What do I care? Doesn't matter to me. I don't have to fight with anybody for a seat. I'll probably have the whole desk to myself. I'll be able to spread out. It'll be lovely, right? No complaining. Um, Apparently, people thought that that was a bit pretentious of me, just sitting in the front row and raising my hand. So now they get to know me, and I wouldn't say I'm pretentious. I wouldn't say that's the adjective. Maybe you could say cocky. Maybe you could say overconfident. Maybe you could say a bit self-absorbed at times. Sure, maybe. But certainly also handsome, charming, all of those too. Um, but I wouldn't say pretentious is one of them. And that changes over time. So be cautious of that. You may be perceived as pretentious if you're going to sit in the front row. Just then with your wit and charm and natural abilities, that'll go away. But you'll have a hurdle.
Well, so I expected this to be the fact, and truthfully, I've been deciding because I understand like once you go into a new place, right, you get to kind of create your own self, right? We talked about this before, and I think what I'm really going to lean into is I want to be like the Kobe Bryant of Barry Law this coming semester. I want to be the guy in the front. I want you to know that I'm doing more than you. I'm going to be telling you that I'm doing more than you. If you need somebody to pick you up, I'll pick you up. But at the end of the day, it's a competition. Somebody's got to be the number one. And if I got to sit in front of the class and be pretentious and jump over hurdles to do it, who else but me? That's what I say to that. All that being said, I like to believe that I would accept the same fate as you, where like it might come off as pretentious, it might come off as this guy's trying to be the woohoo teacher's pet, but then you talk to me and we settle it, and you realize that I'm here for one thing and one thing only, to leave.
Well, I think that's fair, but also, the legal profession is a lot about the relationships that you create and connect
Yeah,
with. So, don't push away that aspect of it either.
yeah. Like I said, the Kobe Bryant, he might have been tough as nails, but everybody has something nice to say about him.
Right? He's respected. He's respected. You can't go away with that.
That's all I need.
That's fair. That's fair. Look, we have a short show, and I don't want to shortchange it. Same thing as always. Been working at my internship. No big deal here. I start school. I actually just got my first two textbooks for evidence class, so it kind
Ooh.
of it's coming quick, and I wouldn't say I'm not ready for it, but it's just at this point it's a little bit different going into year two than year one, obviously. So it
Yeah,
is what it is. But let's get this show on the road. What do you say, Steve?
I'm down.
All right. So I think the first story that we'll cover is the not New Jersey Direct story, and then we'll get into the New Jersey Direct story second. The first story that we're covering, it was actually an op-ed over in the New York Times by Nicholas Kristof. He's an opinion columnist, and it's called "The Real College Admissions Scandal." Now, basically, he goes into this and it starts talking about the affirmative action and why affirmative action was a good thing in admissions and it helped him out. Now, he's not a person of color, but he grew up in a small rural community, and there was a time where Harvard was sort of going out of their way to get people from these small rural community towns in the middle of the country that maybe they wouldn't have the same opportunities as people from metropolitan areas or richer families or legacy students, and they were trying to bring them in to sort of diversify the population. So he talks about, despite being a white guy from the middle of the country, Harvard wasn't in his game plan because he never thought it was attainable, but affirmative action helped him get there. And I'm sure there are lots and lots of stories similar that, getting into these institutions changed the perspective of people's lives that previously wouldn't have had that opportunity. We know that to be the case. And we've talked about affirmative action on this show and our opinions on the decision and so on and so forth. So I don't necessarily want to get into that. And I also don't want to necessarily get into the statistics that he shows in this, because You can read them yourself, and I think you'll get lost in the numbers. And I'm sure it will not come to a surprise to anyone that people that go to these upper, higher institutions tend to have better outcomes in life. Uh, I don't think that that's a very surprising thing, and I don't think that's something you need to dig into the numbers for. Um, but I think where this is important is he makes a couple of key points. One of which he starts talking about how Ivy these it should be up to these schools in the Ivy League at this point to say, okay, fine, we're not allowed to consider race in admission, but maybe we should stop, I guess, caring so much about or putting such heavy weight on things like legacy recruiting. Things like, okay, well, your mom and dad went here, so you should go here too. Things like, um, the ability to play certain sports and stuff like, and sports being the only avenue for people. Um, he also talks about how these there should be maybe more class-based or geographical affirmative actions. Saying kids from lower income areas or kids from more rural areas. But I think the biggest point that he makes, and this is a liberal columnist, and he talks about being very upset with the Supreme Court, and I disagree with him on that. But what I agree with him the most on is this idea that he puts out there, which I think is brilliant. It's exactly what you would want, and I don't see an excuse from these Ivy League institutions as to not do it because they have billions of dollars in endowment. And if they actually want to make a difference in these minority communities and these people's lives, this is exactly what they should do. And it's his second to last paragraph in this entire article, but I want to read it out loud to you, and I think this is where we should have the conversation. It says, in the broadest sense, the real college admissions scandal isn't even the extra benefit given to privileged kids. It's that so much talent is never nurtured, and a majority of young people don't get a chance to graduate from college at all. If we're serious about promoting equality, we can champion early childhood programs to get more kids in a university, invest in a pre-K. We can take on local funding of education, which leads to poor children attending poor schools. We can fight to raise high school graduation rates. As I've written, we can learn from states that have gained ground, including Mississippi, once mocked as the nation's education caboose, and now a place where fourth graders in poverty are tied for the best in the nation in reading. He says it's easy enough for us liberals to sit around carping about the Supreme Court. Sure, let's do that for 5 minutes. But then let's focus on all else that we can still do to boost opportunity and diversity. Okay, so that's the last two paragraphs of this article, and I think the most important paragraphs of this article. And he talks about how, maybe the government or the public sector should take advantage of these things and raise these high school graduation rates and raise these early childhood programs. But I say, why doesn't Harvard do it? Imagine Harvard going into the inner city of Boston, right? The city that they are, well, technically they're in Cambridge, but close enough. The city that they are in, the direct area that they are a part of. You go into the inner cities and you start your Harvard